Hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. Just waiting for a few more people to join and then we can get started. But we're so glad you're here with us. And, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us where you're zooming in from. Welcome, welcome, Ava. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Glad to have you here. Welcome as you're joining us. Yes, tell us where you're coming from. The UK, we got Canada. All right. Also from Hungary. Welcome. India. Welcome. Kenya, Lagos. Of course. Zambia, Ghana, Kenya, Macedonia, Senegal, Mexico, the US, Mozambique. Welcome. I'm from Turkey, from South Africa. Yes, Nairobi. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. We're so glad to have you. All right, great, great, great. Just waiting for a few more folks. Tanzania, welcome. Yes, 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 yes. We are sending love to those in Uganda on election day. South Africa. Yes, welcome, welcome. All right. Okay. I think we're hitting critical mass, so we should be good to go. So for those of you who are just joining us, as you can see, people are telling us where they're joining us from, so we can see that we are truly today a global village coming together. So good morning. I know for those probably on some part of the world, it's really, really early in the morning. So we appreciate that commitment to being here. Some of you might be afternoon already. So good afternoon. For some of you might be evening. Good evening. All of that. We're so happy that you could join us today from wherever you are in the world. And more importantly, we're really glad you found the time and the space to be here because today I'm excited about this space. And the reason I'm excited about this space is that I'm sure most of you either have decided to give up reading the news or are trying to filter the news um, because of everything that has been going on. Many of us felt that 2025 was intense, was serious, was unbelievable. For some people saw it coming, others were shocked. And we were hoping that the new year might bring better change. But many of us are also seeing different kinds of changes that we didn't expect. And as somebody already mentioned in the chat, we are in solidarity in this space with those who are suffering from all forms of violence, including state violence. And today we're thinking of our comrades, as was said, in Uganda, whose internet has been shut off and who are going to the polls today. And we're hoping that they're safe, that they would not face violence for whatever decisions that they make at the polls, or if they decide to uphold their right to stay at the polls until the votes are counted, with hope that there could be change in Uganda. But we also know that we've seen that our comrades from Tanzania can speak to what happened there. And so, but in many places, it's not just in Uganda, it's across the world. And that made me think of this poem by Washington Share. I'll just read it. She said, later that night, I held an atlas in my lap, ran my fingers across the whole world and whispered, Where does it hurt? And it answered, everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. And so we know everywhere across the world, people are hurting, people are facing violence, people are looking for hope. Even many of us are looking for hope. And so this space today is a reminder of our agency, of our ability to be alchemists who know the power of community, who know how to harness it. In many ways, this space is about how we look to the past, as they say in Ghana, Sankofa, to inform the future, right? For us to be able to say, we do have something, we do have a response, we do have a way of understanding and looking at the world to be able to meet these times, even if these times feel for many unprecedented, or for some, takes them back to a time that they fought to change and they had seen progress. And maybe now some of that progress is being rolled back. But in many ways, community philanthropy was a response to that. So today is a festival. Today we're taking all that pain, all that hurt, all that solidarity, all that possibility, and we're doing a festival. And so as you join us and as you're listening to me, I would like for you to share in the chat two things. One, what is the word for festival in your language? Tell us so today we can learn new words. And more importantly, what it means to you. When somebody tells you there's a festival, what does that mean to you? So tell us what festival is in your language and what it means to you. According to the dictionary, it means it's an event that is celebrated by community. And it centers on an aspect of our culture or of our unity. And so what we're doing today is not only celebrating a program, right, that's ending possibly, but what we're celebrating is what works and what we've seen work. What has brought us together in times of crises, in times of cruelty, in terms of uncertainty. What has made it possible, like Toni Morrison says, that we don't despair. She was talking to artists, but we are also artists. That we don't despair. What we do in these times is that we get to work. And what we have been able to get to work is care, is collective action, is finding joy in spite of all of it. And so in January, in this month, where many of us are setting resolutions, we're reflecting on what we've been able to accomplish and also setting intentions. And also knowing that as one door closes, as they say in my country, another opens. And so this is a perfect time to celebrate this Giving for Change, one of the first programs that a bilateral donor, invested in community philanthropy and looked at it as a strategy, not as a silver bullet, but as a strategy for organizing, for mobilizing, for building power, for shifting power, and for consolidating gains that have been made. So today we're here to talk about community philanthropy. And those sounds like big words, right? But no, all it means is that how do we ensure that communities no longer remain at the margins? How do we make sure that they're at the center? How do we ensure that we're telling stories that showcase the power of community, that showcase the only power that is stronger than governments, that is stronger than borders, that is stronger than the isms and the structural and systemic violence that many of us face every day in our so-called territories and countries. And so today we're celebrating, we're recognizing country, as many of you have put in the chat, colors, right? Like Diwali, for example, or in Portuguese, it's festival, right? Community celebrating connection, people with shared values, creating, connections, gathering, bonding, sharing joy, pulling together, building bonds, listening to each other, belonging, because we all seek belonging, music, dancing, eating. Well, maybe we don't have food here, but we can do all of that, or to remember an event. So we're remembering because the power of memory is also so, so, so important, right? The stories we tell ourselves, how we build trust, how we build connection, what links us and what brings us together. So today, we're celebrating not just giving, but belonging, but community, but trust, but all those very important things that makes it possible. So today I welcome you to listen with your mind, but not just your mind, but with your heart, with your soul, and, open all of your senses to be here, because that's what this festival is going to feed today. Because we hope that you're going to leave here today in service of community voices, in service of power, in service of what is possible, right? Because Andrew Roy told us that other worlds are coming, and all of you are birthing new worlds with the work that you do. And we're going to hear some of those stories of that happening. So welcome again. So if necessary, grab that cup of tea, grab that drink of water, or whatever beverage of choice, so we can cheers each other and kick off this festival of possibilities. So after all I have said, with some housekeeping, hopefully some of you have already done the interpretation, but because you're not just here to listen to me, you're here to listen to some amazing people and watch some movies, and we don't want you to miss anything. If you're not familiar with Zoom, you can go to those three dots and select interpretation. And today we have interpretation in Arabic, French, and Portuguese. So please go get the interpretation so you can properly hear people. Also, because this is a webinar, and maybe some of you are on your phones or on your computer, and the screen is going to be small. But once we start playing the trailers and the films, please expand to full screen so you're really able to feel that magic, yeah? And you're able to see the films and the trailers properly. So just don't forget to do that. We have 2 hours here, or a little less, for this. And so we are having 2 parts, just to give you a little taste. We have 2 parts. The first part is we're going to start with a film, Leading Voices. It's a documentary, which is looking at the importance of community philanthropy, which is why we're here. So we'll watch a snippet of that. But today, if you have more time after, or, this weekend, we have lots of films for you to catch up on. So, which is amazing. So you at least get a taste of that. Then we'll have a panel discussion with our panelists. And then after that, we shall have poetry by Wana, which is really exciting. And then we'll have part 2, which is now showing trailers of spotlights of films. You see from Kenya, from Ghana, but then we're also going to spotlight 2 amazing trailers, just beautiful, from Palestine and from Burkina Faso. And we'll talk to them as well. And then after that, we will wrap up. But please, as you're listening, as you're hearing, as you're watching, and you have questions and you have comments, the chat is open, the Q&A is open. So please feel free to send us your questions, to use the chat, to use the Q&A, and that'll be an opportunity to ask some questions. So you're going to get to see some amazing work from the Giving for Change partners over the last 5 years, but especially in the last 6 months. And so, welcome. But then, so I am going to call on Wendy, who's going to launch the first film trailer, which is a documentary, Leading Voices, and then we shall get started. So welcome again, everyone.
Community philanthropy. It's an ancient practice and a modern one. In every part of the world, there are living traditions of giving and communities sharing resources. But it goes largely unseen and undervalued. Meanwhile, big philanthropy dominates the headlines. It's made more visible by growing inequality and our unjust economic system. The word philanthropy has come to suggest a hierarchy, a giver and beneficiary. The word has lost its connection to its original meaning, which is simply a love of humankind. In quiet corners around the world, community leaders are building on local traditions of solidarity and mutual aid. They have started to think how community philanthropy can be used strategically for development led and driven by the community. So for those leaders, what is community philanthropy and what are its traditions?
Here in Uganda, community philanthropy has deep roots. You can call it sharing, you can call it power, it's oneness, and I don't think we even recognize it as philanthropy. We have terms like Ubuntu Bulamu, which is a recognition that as a community, as a people, we are mutually interdependent.
Community philanthropy is a practice of solidarity and support that has existed for many, many years in Mexico. We call it either tequio or mano vuelta. The people, they just help each other.
In Palestine, we have an alternative word that we use, which is al-auna. Al-auna is more of a community safety space where people can work together collectively to ensure that everyone is living safely.
Filipinos experience lot of hazards on a regular basis. It's so natural for Filipinos to share what they have. We call it in our language, pagkakaloob, or generous giving.
First and foremost, community philanthropy is a choice. The biggest and most crucial asset is not funds, but networks of trust.
Community philanthropy basically existed within religious and traditional giving, which means you help each other out and you take responsibility as an entire community where you went and planted each other's rice fields without exchanging money.
Community philanthropy places power where it belongs, in the hands of less privileged groups. Building collective power has transformative potential. It mitigates injustice and centers what matters most, which is our interconnectedness.
Philanthropy is one of definition of democratic society. If philanthropy is existing, it means that society is democratic. Community philanthropy is about people. It's really demonstrate cohesion and kindness.
Partnerships, mutual support and dependence, exchange of labor, a social safety net and autonomy, all these are community philanthropy's deep roots. So what does community philanthropy look like in different parts of the world?
Poland's history is a bit complex because under the communism, it was not possible to operate as a civil society. So we were kind of rebuilding civil society after the collapse of communism in early 90s.
So the struggle for Uganda's independence was led by communities organizing through cooperatives. So for us, at its core, community philanthropy or mobilizing local resources is an act of self-determination, it's an act of independence. It's also about freedom from anyone's influence, anyone's control or conditionalities. This is why the modest financial or even in-kind contributions of ordinary people carry a profound symbolic weight.
So the community philanthropy is inspired by the Palestinian National Charter, and it consists mainly of two main principles, which is liberation and justice. Liberation is because we're living under occupation, and justice means that resources are distributed fairly, equally. That's our message. We are all equal, and the community resources are open for everyone.
One of the organizations that received a micro grant from FemFund started as an informal collective, and they observed that many women face barriers in accessing period products. So what they created these ping boxes, and they were filled with hygiene products, and they started putting them in public spaces, in schools, in refugee centers, in public toilets. So coming from the grassroots, starting with some small seed funding, they grew into something extremely meaningful.
In 2021, Kherson Community Foundation did an analysis what the community is worrying about, and they were worried about their safety and wanted to have a map of shelters. Community Foundation collected all data about where shelters are located. But what's happened next is really about community philanthropy. People started to visit these potential shelters so that it's not properly prepared, and they started to do their cleaning in order to prepare the shelter to be ready if something will happen. And as we may know, in 2022, a full-scale invasion started. And this is about unique knowledge and cohesion in community.
Okay, thank you. That was so beautiful. We are already inspired. And I'm seeing the emojis. Please keep it coming as well. Yes, very beautiful. And just a reminder, and you'll be hearing some of the people on that video speak as well. And has been put in the chat a link to the full documentary is in the chat. Don't go watch it yet, but afterwards you can. All right. And then I also realized, did I introduce myself, people? I got so excited to start when you people joined. Did I introduce myself? I don't think I did. But so for those of you who don't know me, who today is the first time you're seeing me, my name is Buki Williams, but really my full name is Olabukunwola Williams, which my name also includes concepts of community philanthropy, because my full name, Ola, means wealth, blessings, and it means I added wealth to more wealth. See, community philanthropy in action. My parents knew what they were doing, right? So welcome again, and you can call me Bookie. So now that we all know each other, let's get back to the real deal. Okay, so now I'm going to call on someone who we all know, especially if you've been part of the program. But I will introduce her just very quickly and ask her a question, because we're going to have a panel discussion, and we're just going to hear from three powerful people who are going to share their thoughts with us, especially after watching that documentary, which was a fantastic teaser. So I'm bringing up Grace Margie, who is the executive director of the Kenya Community Development Foundation, a Giving for Change partner. Grace is a human rights lawyer who has been working in this sector for the past 24 years. And of course, we know her work has been showcasing the need for equality and justice and has been fighting towards that. So welcome, Grace. Can we please give her hearts, flowers, cheer her on? And Grace, as somebody who's been part of this program and has shown deep commitment to community philanthropy, how should we interpret this current context and the role of community philanthropy? Over to you, Grace, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Buki. And thank you to everyone who's on, and all the people who worked so hard to organize this today, and for the kind invitation. With looking at the context, I think, as you mentioned, Buki, in terms of where there's hurt, the issues that are happening globally, there's so many different crises happening. The definition of polycrisis: wars, inequality, growing inequality, but also there are great things happening in different spaces. I think when we look at community philanthropy and the context today, it is such an important and powerful way for us to look at how we can do development differently. Because community philanthropy puts communities at the center, puts communities driving the change, using the resources and the understanding that they know the issues that they're facing, and they have a key role to play in really driving and addressing the developmental challenges that we face. So in the current context, we've seen the challenges around foreign development aid reducing, challenges around countries looking more inward, having nationalistic outlooks and thinking about themselves. And therefore, community philanthropy comes in a way that is so powerful that it can address not only the symptoms, but also the root causes of the challenges that we face today. And what do I mean? Even from the snippet of the documentary that we saw, the ladies putting the sanitary wares in a box, that deals with an immediate symptom. But that also gives an opportunity to address the root causes as to why there's inequality, that there are ladies who cannot access sanitary ware. And so community philanthropy is so important for our current context because it gives us that opportunity where we are, communities at the center, to look at what can I do today for my neighbor, for my community, for myself, but also then what can I do to address the root issue as to where we are now. So with the reducing donor aid, the reducing foreign assistance, the focus of countries looking nationally, Community Foundation really, people, I think it's important to say it's not a silver bullet, as you said in the beginning, but it's such a powerful tool for us to go back to basics, but to also look at root causes which we're facing. And so community philanthropy gives us that opportunity to look at root causes, but also not forget the daily challenges that people are facing. And it gives us the opportunity to do that. Thank you so much, Buki.
Thank you so much, Grace, for that powerful beginning. And I think that is so critical. And don't we all agree? Of course. I think these are very critical. And having something that brings us together to be able to address it without waiting for others is so critical, especially in this time. Thank you so much, Grace. And we'll come back to you later. And in the meantime, I'm going to call on Kamala. Kamala, are you there?
Hi.
Okay, great. Hi, Kamala. Welcome. And Kamala Chandrakurana is an Indonesian feminist, and also a human rights justice and democracy advocate, and is also currently the chief of the board of trustees of Indonesia for Humanity. Welcome. We're so glad to have you here. And Kamala, you've done a lot of important work at the intersections that are foundational to social change. As we rethink our responses in light of the existing and emerging and intersecting crises, the poly crisis, as Grace said, what lessons should we be adapting for now and the future? Over to you. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Buki. Yeah, the lessons. I mean, I think I'd like to use this opportunity to talk about what is the call of this time that we call now. What is now anyway? The poly crisis, as we've just discussed now. In particular, this time now is a time when domination by force and violence is growing in the midst of when there's a system breakdown of institutions built through since the Second World War. And we know that the aid system, the donor system, the philanthropy system that we have been part of is integral to that global system that was built in the Second World War. So the breakdown of those institutions is also has a face in this field. What is the call in this context? I believe part of my reflection is that we really need to focus on an agenda to build anew, to build something new, new spaces. In my organization, Indonesia for Humanity, we've been here for 30 years. We've just celebrated our 30th anniversary. And now we are trying very, very hard to really start something new that answers to the particular demands of the moment. And that we, part of, I think, community philanthropy organizations, community-based organizations that's trying to build resources from the bottom, from communities, we ourselves are evolve with the changes of the times. And so now this is a moment where we're called upon to make sure that we are making the kinds of changes that would lead us to this better world in the future. What is the biggest asset in my view, our most valuable asset is rootedness. And this was what makes our community-based organizations having an advantage at this particular moment because we are rooted, and this rootedness is about trust. The capital is not money. The capital that we are working with is trust that can rise and fall and needs care and repair. And that ultimately this rootedness is hope, if we do it right, will be the foundation for a new world that we're all hoping for. And the third point that I want to say here is the capacity that is really crucial for us to develop and grow is the capacity for bold and collective imagination. Imagination of something new, but informed by our history and our traumas, that's rooted in our culture that's often been forgotten, but also informed by science that does not subordinate. So how do we build, before we even build initiatives, now is the time to build imagination. And I believe that this is the call of our time. We can all contribute to different pathways of emergence. And I believe this to be our politics of hope.
Thank you so much, Kamala. I think many of the things you said are so critical, and that rootedness, I think, is so important. In times of uncertainty, I think we start running everywhere. And I think that's the thing that we need right now is that rootedness. And, exactly as Chandrika just put, the politics of hope. I'm taking that with me. I'm borrowing that. But I shall cite you properly that I heard it from you. But yes, more than anything, and that the capital is not money, it's trust. Thank you so much. I think both you and what you and Grace are saying, it's bringing it all together that really the possibilities are there. It's happening, it's working. We can so do that. Thank you so much. We'll be back to you later. All right. I feel like a newscaster. Thank you. Back to you. All right. Now I'm going to call on Tanko. Are you there? Are you with us? Live and direct. Fantastic. Thank you. All right. Live and direct from Ghana. We have Tanko, who is not only the executive director of Star Ghana Foundation, but is also a development professional with over 30 years of experience and has worked extensively with the government, local civil society organization, bilateral aid agencies in Ghana, but also that the foundation is a Giving for Change partner. So given your experience and perspective, what are the lessons learned from using community philanthropy as a strategy for centering community voices and collective action for social change and justice?
Thank you very much, Buki, and thank you. Welcome to everybody else on this conversation. I think there are quite a number of lessons. I will highlight just a few, and I'm sure in the Q&A we can bring up other points. I will start with the issue of inclusion, that we take it almost as a given that community philanthropy, by definition, by its nature, is inclusive of all voices and perspectives. But then in reality, there is a possibility that it could be hijacked, that some voices could be silenced, and etc. And therefore, I think that intentionality in facilitating a process, a strategy, a mechanism that is inclusive of all sections of the community, irrespective of how we define community. So I think that intentionality about inclusion is really important. A second point for me is the relationship between community philanthropy and, well, for want of a better term, formal governance, the institutions of governance. There is a tendency sometimes to use philanthropy or community philanthropy as a getaway card, as a card that excuses government from fulfilling its responsibilities. And therefore, I think that whole link between what communities are designing, what communities are doing, and government and governance institutions is quite important, so that it doesn't become an excuse for governments or government agencies to shirk their responsibilities. Linked to a point that was made earlier by Kamala, I think the whole issue around social justice. Yes, community philanthropy is about communities taking responsibility for their own development. It centers community voices and agency. But it also needs to be asking the questions, why are things the way they are? Why are children not in school and we have to maybe contribute to build school structures or pay teachers and etc.? It's important. It engenders ownership. But at the heart of community philanthropy should be social justice. That we ask the questions, we ensure that duty bearers are accountable and etc. To their role and responsibilities. So in 5 minutes, these are the ones that I would like to put out. But later on, I think we can come to other points that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tanko. And I think that really important point that you made, that often that community philanthropy is being used to subsidize governments, right? That governments don't take their responsibility, especially around public goods, and then we rely on community philanthropy for that. And that's something that's really important for us to note. And thank you. I think that is such an important point. I think this is honestly the first panel I've been on where people stay within time. I don't have to start calling your name or clearing my throat. And so succinct and so powerful. So I think I have a few minutes to come back, to you all to give us a bit more insights into this in particular. And also just want to quickly read from the chat, because I think people are speaking. Yes, people are resonating with their politics of hope and that capitalist trust. But we also have Jumana who's saying, we have seen these things happen in different places with foreign aid and the support for civil society agreeing that that's a getaway card for governments. And Nizreen is saying that this resonates with her as well. How to make sure that community philanthropy does not move responsibility away from government, that community philanthropy to demand change and hold them accountable, and to withdraw consent from the oppressor or the government that is not doing right. Very much agreed. But Grace, I'm gonna come back to you because I'm sure you have more thoughts that was cut short by the time. So this is the time for you to share a little bit more thoughts, especially as part of the program, in terms of when we think of, community philanthropy, what is working? Why should we, see this as a strategy? What's working?
Thanks so much, Buki. And I think all the insights from my fellow panelists really bring it home. In terms of what is working and why should we spotlight community philanthropy? I think it's because it's actually how things should be done right from the get-go. And what that means is that communities are the center. So imagine, and I've used this analogy many times, imagine if someone comes and dictates to you how things should happen in your home, how you should behave, where you should put things in your home, and tells you, and you're going to do this because I'm giving you this amount of money. That's so disempowering. So community philanthropy really grounds that communities should be at the center of driving the development, driving the change. Their resources should not only be seen or equated to financial or money, but their resource in terms of knowledge, expertise, time, the solidarity is also a very important resource. So for me, community philanthropy enables to give the most unheard amongst us a place to be heard. And it gives us an opportunity to, in the community, to be in the driving seat and saying, these are the challenges I'm facing. I am inviting you, the rest of the world, I'm inviting, all those who owe an obligation to work with me as I address 1, 2, 3, 4. So I want to really emphasize that we're not saying that community philanthropy is just about, poor people coming together and contributing towards addressing 1 or 2 issues. There's power in voice, there's power in solidarity, there's power in engagement. And I think one thing that for us who work in the development sector, we must not see our role as taking away responsibility from government. We have come in because government has failed in certain areas. And so community philanthropy gives us also an opportunity and an avenue to hold government to account and say, you're not doing X, Y, Z. So I think we need to have a broader appreciation and understanding of what community philanthropy is. And the challenge around, the practice around development and philanthropy work is that the status and the positioning of money has been equated to money, power. And if you don't have power, you don't have money. If you don't have money, you don't have power. Or if you can't speak in a particular way, you don't have knowledge or expertise. So community philanthropy really focuses on what's the most important thing. Those are the community, those who are driving the change. And it doesn't mean you're excluding others, but who is in the driver's seat. And really everything that we do is about addressing the challenges that communities face. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Grace. Thank you for bringing it home. Kamala, with what you're hearing from Grace, and you were talking about building trust in politics of hope, can you talk a little bit more about trust within community philanthropy, or how we can build that even better and more?
Sorry, Buki, there was the interpreter's voice that came out, so I couldn't hear what you said.
No
Sorry.
problem. Sorry. I was just saying, listening to Grace, in terms of community philanthropy and what works, and you had mentioned trust. And I just wanted to expand a little bit on that, building that capital like of trust. Like maybe you can just speak for 2 minutes on how do we really do that? How do we build and strengthen trust in communities?
Yeah, well, firstly, we have to understand the nature of trust. That trust is not something that you achieve and get and just will stay there all the time. Trust is something that you can lose, that you can grow, and that can change, shift. And so caring for trust, for the networks of trust that we have built, is something that is a forever task. And and especially now when it is a time of genuine historic change, trust is what we have to be able to navigate this time that, some people call time of radical uncertainty. And so that trust is what creates the rootedness. But I also want to say what's important for us at this particular moment of historical change is to show that community-based organizations are not static, that we evolve, that we have the capacity to evolve and maybe even to transform. And this is the moment, this is the call of our time now, because communities are changing as well. New generation, we have the next generation that needs to take the lead. We have our institutions that are breaking down. This is truly a serious moment of change, and to ensure our relevance, we need to be able to understand how we transform in grounded in trust and rooted.
Thank you so much for that. Just some housekeeping. I see that someone said there's two Portuguese translation running simultaneously. Can we please um, make sure, and please, Vanessa, if that has been fixed, please let us know, because we want to make sure everyone is hearing all the beautiful words from our panelists. So please let's. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Wendy. All right, Tanko, I'm gonna have you bring us home because you were situation community, philanthropy within social justice. And as somebody who's been part of the Giving for Change program, I know Jenny has put in the chat that it was a way of organizing resources, building collective power, and things like that. So I don't know, in terms of talking about, as you were saying, with social justice, how was community philanthropy, contributing to that and even maybe holding government accountable? Do you see it as a possibility for that?
Yes, I see that not just as a possibility, but I see it as something that needs to be integrated in it. And one of the points that I wrote down just now is that fact that sometimes we as a philanthropy support organizations, facilities, etc., we almost silo our approaches. So with one hat, we're talking about shifting power. Another hat, we're talking about locally led development. Another hat, we're talking about whatever. Uh, but I think that all these are integral to achieving inclusive, sustainable development, centering community voices. That you can't do that without shifting power. You can't do that without, having locally led development at the heart of what you do. You can't do that without, supporting communities to hold duty bearers account, to say, look, this is our community. These are the things that we need to do. This is what we can do, but this is also what the duty bearers need to do, whether it's access to resources, whether it is access to public goods and services, and etc. So I think that social justice philanthropy is one that encompasses all that we've been talking about: shifting power, local led development, community agency and voice, and it is possible if, as Kamala has said, we talk about trust. I mean, Grace has also highlighted that, and the fact that in all that we do, we recognize that we are facilitators, we are support, partners, but at the heart of everything are the communities and their organizations and their institutions.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our panelists. Can you give my panelists flowers, claps, and cheers? Thank you so much for these very important contributions. We'll be coming back to you later in there, so there's more conversations to be had. So just want to say a big, big thank you. And I see that people are putting Q&A and questions. We will get to those shortly in part 2. And so we will definitely tie that into the questions. I just want to note some of the things in the chat before we jump in. In the Giving for Change program, which this festival marks the end of, framed community philanthropy as a strategy through which communities, by organizing themselves and their resources in ways that can build collective power and voice and make claims of power holders such as the state and corporations. Thank you for that reminder, Jenny. And Alain has introduced himself, and they're looking for partnerships and for connecting. So please feel free to connect with our people from Cameroon. Natasha is saying she agrees that community philanthropy is about more than funding. It's about voice, solidarity, participation, and a deeper understanding of money as a tool for trust and collective power, not hierarchy. This is truly what sustains community-led change. Agbulade says, trust is an important currency that requires accountability and integrity to sustain. Fantastic. And then with Jonathan, he loves the Community Philanthropy Festival slogan, a convening initiated by a particular community without external influence. This informs that the community resonate the love of humanity amongst themselves, and that is what brings us together, collect the resources and address the need. Thank you. Thank you so much. And we do see your questions. We will be coming to them. And even some, I can see that there's some responses being typed. So we will definitely get to that. But now we've listened to our powerful panelists, but now it's time to shift gears just a little bit. And so, of course, we can't have a festival if all we're doing is just, talking. Today we have with us somebody who at least I love listening to. Anytime Wana Udobang is part of a performance or is part of an event, I always get really excited. So just to introduce Wana is a writer, a poet, a performer, a curator, and a storyteller. And her practice sits in a tapestry of art, media, and advocacy. And today we have the pleasure of having Wana with us because she's going to share her poetry with us. And so she's going to share a poem called Of Hands and Clay. So I am going to now hand over to Wana to take us on this journey. Over to you, Wana.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Buki. And thank you to everyone. It's really an honor to be here with you and also share stories through the incredible work that everyone here has been doing. So I'm going to go straight into the poem. Somewhere inside a small village, faces are screen printed on tarpaulin. They cling to branches, trees become walls. The village square is exhibition ground. They turn the profit to healthcare, and this is how a small village will keep their mothers alive. Ensure that sickness does not disembowel the guts of little children or turn the fate of their babies to cadaver. You see, where we come from, we know that a finger cannot push a stone, so we come together, clenched as a fist. Somewhere inside a small city, seeds are sown into the soil. From burrowing into blooming, we beat the wheat from the germ, peel the husks and the skins, grind kernels to powder. As powder turns satsa, we feast. Here, everybody is welcome. Our neighbors know no hunger. Our children are not effigies for aid campaigns. Here, one piece of land turns value chain. We make a marketplace of our labor, secure the food. We feed our people. Somewhere inside a country, technology is tutor. Algorithms turn curriculums. Pencil and charcoal turn sentient beings. Here we make stick figures dance, make the inanimate animate, pour the knowledge down. This is energy in motion. We are a country who made a sport of a craft. We built an institution. Somewhere by the ocean's mouth, a tide is flinging the fish. A young girl gathers the troops, hands wrapped around scaly skin. They throw them back in. They battle the tide, repopulate the ocean, restore ecologies, give breath to the water to multiply. From Burkina to Brazil, Mexico to Mozambique, Palestine to the Philippines, our communities have held their fate in the palms of their hands, molded the clay of their lives, baked them to bricks, stacked them and built monuments to cover our people. Indigenous legacies carved from the barks of trust, of empathy, of care. We define what it means to be the village, reimagine what it means to give back to our people. And in one singular act, we defy, become new patterns, write new stories, change histories. We transform each village, each town, each city, each country. We become the custodians of knowledge, of leadership, of resources. We are sky and sea. We animate the dreams of our children. And even when the world as we know it crumbles, we fight. We fight for a future and a freedom for all. We shift the power, turn a hashtag into a movement, tilt it off its axis, make us human again, community again, center again. Thank you.
Wow. I'm just going to have us take a minute and just take that in, right? And just take that in. Yes, as you can see, people are just saying incredible, beautiful, powerful. Yes, yes, yes. And as somebody already said, art should be part of every fight for rights.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes. So, and I just want to say thank you for those words. And more importantly, for me, it served as a reminder, right? Of why we're doing what this is. And so, and I just want to ask you before we let you go, because not only are you a performer, you're also a storyteller, you also understand these issues very much so. So why do you think it's important to highlight, as you were writing this poetry, why did you think it was important to highlight, these communities, these issues? Why was it important to highlight it now? Could you hear me? Okay, good.
Can you say that again? Sorry, I think the internet was the
Oh,
connection was
sorry.
okay.
People
Just repeat that again, the question.
Okay, you can hear me now. Okay.
I can hear you now.
Great, sorry. Yes. So I was just saying, like, I feel the same way people are feeling in the chats, right? In terms of like the powerful words. And for me, what you were saying served as a reminder of the power of community, of the power of words, of the power of our stories. And I was just thinking, why is it important to highlight these stories, these words? Why do we need these reminders now more than ever?
I think, we've been with the conversation about shifting the power has been happening for a while, right? And what for me, the stories of the work that we do is also it's a reminder that, we need to recognize like our original form. We've always been community people. We've always been community centric. This is our origin. This is our roots. So the idea of even shifting the power is going back to form. We're going back to what we know. We're going back to our originality, to our legacy that has been given to us by ancestry in itself as well. So before we even try to impose new ideas, who are we and what have we been doing? A lot of the answers of how we shift the tide, how we shift the power is already something we've been doing. But I think sometimes we don't recognize who we are. And I think for me, storytelling is about not only truth, but it's about documentation, right? And if we can document our original practices and remind ourselves of it. So in a way, it's me going to the past. The thing you talk about, Ubuntu, it's me going to the past of how we've been working, what we've been doing. We've never let our people go hungry. Till today, we know that people show up at our doors without phone calls. You just show up and it's, have you eaten? Have you eaten is a term of endearment. It's a love language. Do you know what I mean? The idea that if somebody in our family is ill, we come together to make sure that their bills are paid and things that we don't wait for other people to even do that for us. So even as we're a philanthropic community and with the work that we're doing, how do we connect to the roots of the people? How do we recognize that? And how do we kind of bring more voice to that? So yeah, it's adding more to what already exists, I think, rather than erasing what's always been there.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rana. I think you saying that it's taking us back to form, to who we are, to recognizing ourselves, because I think maybe that's part of what this break that is happening, this radical uncertainty is that we don't
Absolutely.
recognize ourselves anymore. We don't see ourselves anymore. And we do need more reminders of who we are and what we are and things like that. So before I let you go, I'm just going to ask you one more question. Is that, as somebody said, it's, we do need to incorporate arts into this work. And as somebody who does it, and we have people here who maybe don't know how do we do that? How do we incorporate arts into this struggle, into this fight? Maybe you can give us 2 or 3 easy ways for us to do that, because I think people see it as it's expensive, it doesn't really fit, it's too kumbaya. But as somebody who does it,
Mm.
who's seen it
Yeah.
done, what are the ways we can do that?
So I think the first thing I'm going to say is, again, this idea of going back to form. Art has always been part of our lives and our lifestyles, whether it is people carving and painting on buildings, whether it's us dancing in our traditional troupes, right? Whether it is the town crier. Art has always been part of our existence as a people in whatever different form. And I think it's recognizing that, because art is communication. Storytelling is communication, whether you're dancing, whether you're painting, whether you're drawing, whether you're doing spoken word, whether you're singing, it is communication. How do we pass the message? And I think thinking of art as part of an integration into our message. And I think that's what's important. So it's not this highfalutin thing that has come after and repackaged that is separate from us. It's remembering that it is part and parcel of who we are.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So I think we need to remember that it is part of the communication. It is part of, the messaging that we're doing. Thank you, Anna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now everyone, how are we doing? Good, good, good. Part 1 is partially over. So wherever you are, I'm going to ask you just a quick minute for our health. I'm going to ask you to stand up. You don't have to turn your camera on. Stand up. Just for a quick minute. Stand up. Oof, 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 oof. And then just shake, 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 shake. Even if you're sitting, just shake, stretch, 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 move. Just a little bit, Lift your toes, your shoulders, turn your neck, just all of that. Move your body, because care for our body is also part of this work, yeah? And often we're always just sitting and things like that. So just do that. Take deep breaths. Yeah? Great. All right. Awesome. So we can keep it going. And thank you all for engaging in the chat. We're seeing it. You're giving feedback back to the panelists, and that's powerful and that's awesome. So thank you. And you can also keep your questions going. So as we move to part 2 of our festival, of our celebration, we're now going to watch trailers of the film. So if you don't have your screen set to full screen, now is the time to do so, because we are going to be watching 3 trailers from Uganda, Kenya, and Ghana. And they're going to showcase different contexts. And I know somebody had asked about approaches to community philanthropy. And so these are just teasers. You've seen Sony in the chat, who's been putting full-length videos and links in there. So, this is just a teaser. You can go watch the full films, which is going to go live today. And so I'm going to hand over to Wendy, who's going to kickstart the trailers.
We saw a child coming out of the bush. So when we followed, we realized there was a community school in the bush. It was a temporary classroom, and it had been eaten up by termites. And we realized the school was not in good condition. All the materials that was promised by the community was brought and it was used for the construction.
Let us come together as a community, as a family.
We stayed there for at least 3 hours, crying with my mom. She told me, don't worry, God is with you. Mother, don't have any work. Then I heard a sound, the phone ringing. She tells her all the things, and then she tells her, go to Solian Girls now.
Kristo hakusema mambo mengi. Aliniambia mama, leo ni siku ya mtoto ya kuadimitiwa.
In Ghana, giving is woven into our lives, but often these acts of generosity end with the moment. What was missing? A way to channel this generosity into lasting development, accountability, and citizen voice.
So the community came together, and through our capacity support, they set up the community foundation. The foundation is owned by the people, the community themselves.
My advice to other communities is, don't wait for help. Start with what you have.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for those trailers, for those teasers. You can let us know if you feel sufficiently teased and ready to go watch those films because it's quite important. And so I'm going to call Grace and Tanko back to the front because these are featuring stories from your work that has been happening under Giving for Change. So I will start with you, Tanko, because I started with Grace the last time. So let's start with Tanko. And can you tell us a little bit more about why we should actually go watch the film and why these stories were important to tell?
I think the story is important for a number of reasons. It highlights the community-centeredness of philanthropy, that it's something that affects everybody, it's something that is everybody's responsibility, and it highlights a community's decision that this is our issue, this is our responsibility to do something to address it. I think the second part is about the whole idea of everybody pitching in, but giving what you have, not giving what is prescribed. Giving what is prescribed is maybe the leaders of the community or somebody saying that everybody should contribute 100 cedis. Giving what you have is to say there is a need, and this is how I can help address the need through my time, through my labor skills, through my money, and etc. And I think it just gives an idea of the different ways in which we can highlight and do that. And the work of course, the philanthropy support organization.
Of course. Thank you so much, Tanko. Looking forward to watching the full film. But I got an early link, so I've seen it. So I recommend you should go see it. All right, Grace, same question. Why was it important to feature that particular story and and tell it? Why? Why was it important?
For us, it was so important because it shows the power of how communities can come together, build assets that, even go into an endowment that can then be able to provide scholarship support to those who are not able to pay school fees. So being able to demonstrate that as demystifying the misconceptions that even in communities that have less economic resources, that they're unable to set up endowments or ways of being able to raise money to be able to support those who are not able to go to school. So for us, the importance also linking to the whole idea in a Swahili saying that we have, that even has come out today, that haba na haba hujaza kibaba, which loosely translated, little by little fills the pot. It doesn't mean you have to wait till you have $1 million, start from where you are, as we have seen in the documentary from Ghana. What do you have? Put it together. When you put it together, it becomes much. And so the power, again, of solidarity, the power of trust, and also, the power of education and how it's able to transform communities. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Grace and Tango. And I hope you all have heard them. And so if you're looking for examples and approaches, it's in these films of how it's done, of how communities are doing it. And so I will come back to you during the Q&A section. Now we shall move on. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So now you can see Sony has shared links in the chat. So it is time. So that once you get time, you can go back and be able to watch those films in particular. So now we are going to Palestine. We're taking a quick trip to Palestine. We have a short trailer from Daila Association. And so we will show the trailer and then we'll invite Noor, who will come tell us a little bit more about it. So yeah, let's take a look at the trailer.
There are times when the ground seems to vanish beneath our feet, when even the sky feels divided. We have learned that giving is not charity, it is survival. Because true sustainability is not a project, it's a way of being together. This is what it means to give for change.
All right. Thank you so much, Lenore. Welcome. That was such a powerful, powerful trailer. Like, I've watched it so many times now, and every time I'm so like emotional and moved. So thank you so much. I just want to quickly introduce Noor. I know some of you know her, but she's the executive director of Dahlia Association and is a social community activist who's been doing this work for over 14 years. So Noor, just tell us, as we see that trailer, tell us what inspired, that animation in particular, and then more importantly, in terms of even the story, telling us why we need to go beyond the trailer and the headlines, because we know we all see the headlines, but why do we need to go beyond that to these actual stories told by communities themselves?
I think it's the power of the full story that have been in the video. So the trailer was just like a teaser way to let people come and join the story. And in this animation that we just produced for Giving for Change and being part of this amazing festival was that we thought that at the time of crisis that Palestine have been passing for more over the 75 years now, but more practically after the genocide in Gaza. I think the main 2 points that we're trying to highlight is the importance of philanthropy and why now it's becoming more and more important, and this can be reflected more in the film, in the full version. I mean, so that's why I encourage you all to go and watch it with all the other partners who have been producing different videos. The main 2 points that I thought is important, and we call it in Arabic al-aune, which is the support, the collective care, the being together. And the main point was that we need at this time of crisis to go back to our traditional behaviors, to our cultural norms that all goes back to the roots of being humans. And I know Grace, Kamala, and everyone have been talking about trust. But that also goes along with accountability, because when there's trust, we feel more accountable, more passionate of what we're doing. And relating also to what was in the first part, it's all about also liberation and justice, because we've been through occupation for a very long time. And we have seen how even under occupation and under colonialism, we've seen the harm of the aid system, which is also very critical, because the aid system didn't only harm us in terms of the agendas of the donors, but also there's different harm views that we have seen and passed through. There was a lot of political governmental agendas driven rather than the community-driven needs. And here we need to compare the essential objective and passion. We are about community-led. We want to respond to the community needs. It's not about the politics. It's not about government. It's not about who rules who and the power. And this is important because within the power system and the dynamics, it goes to be also there's a lack of the right of human development, the developments that is led by people, by the voices of the local people. Along with the different aid system, and we have been seeing that in Palestinian context, that whenever there's a flood of fund coming, because it's under crisis, there's a lot of fund coming, it goes along with a lot of conditional funding. And that's what also Kamala said, that when there's funding, it's different from being community voices. And I think this relates a lot about philanthropy, because it's about giving genuinely from the heart, from the passion of supporting the locals, of showing care, of showing collectiveness. And this would have been actually also distracted for us as a community that have been all working collectively within the ONE, which is when your neighbor got a loss, you stand for them. And when they're celebrating weddings, you stand for them. And now moving more toward individualism. It's all about me, myself. It's not about we anymore. So this shift is harming the concept. And this was the harm of the aid funding, because it's all about donor driven. It's lacking the respect of accountability. It's lacking the respect of humanity and human rights, and the voices of the locals being raised and shared and given as needed. And also in the video, we will see more about how being standing hand in hand and like shoulder to shoulder is also showing the importance of collectivism, but it's also saying that things can be done differently. And we can no more do things as before, because now the resources are limited. And now it's time to think about our traditional behaviors. It's about remembering how the ONE or the giving or the philanthropy or whatever. I know there's a lot of words that can describe this, but at the end of the day, it's about being together, utilizing the resources, but also efficiently using the resources. We don't need to have the consumer-based behavior. We need to be there for each other, to show solidarity, to show support, to show love and care and belonging, which is essential for building real development, durable development that is based on the local voices. Because whenever it's an up-down, it will be like hitting the floor. And then this is what you will see also in the video with this red ball that is also going from under the ground. This is going back. It's all about going back to the seeds under the ground. It's about building the place where it's from the heart of the place where you will see it pumping and getting up to be an apple that feeds everyone. So go and watch it.
Yes, thank you so much. And it's so beautifully done, honestly, and so moving and so necessary. So thank you for doing this work, the work itself, and also thank you for documenting it so that we can learn from it and also get to support you as well. So thank you. And as Noor said, go and watch it. Thanks, Noor. All right. And now we are going from Palestine to Burkina Faso. All right, so Wendy, take us to Burkina Faso.
Un village qui, bien que géographiquement éloigné, ne laisse jamais l'isolement définir son avenir.
Et malheureusement, le barrage tarit autour du 15 novembre chaque année.
Projet est la preuve que, même dans les endroits les plus reculés, c'est l'unité et la détermination d'un peuple qui font naître le changement.
Okay, and so now I'm going to call Abdullahi. Abdullahi, oh, fantastic. Bienvenue. All right, we're going to call Abdullahi, who is a founding member of the Burkinabe Fundraising Association since 2008, and it's currently is executive director. Abdullahi, thank you for joining us today. And so, Abdullahi, in this, we see community working together, in spite of the isolation. Can you share with us what are the important themes that are captured in the film and why we should go watch it?
Ok, merci William, merci à tous mes prédécesseurs. Et la vidéo qui vient d'être partagée à travers la réalisation de ce film documentaire sur le programme Giving for Change dans ce village très reculé du Burkina Faso. On remarque que c'est une stratégie très efficace parce que vous savez bien que depuis plus de 10 ans, le Burkina Faso vit une crise sécuritaire sans précédent liée au terrorisme. Et ce film nous a permis de voir des populations très engagées, une population qui s'est mise à prendre leur destin en main. Et vous savez que notre pays aussi, c'est un pays sahélien qui n'a que 3 mois de pluviométrie par an. Et après les 3 mois, comme le documentaire l'a dit, tout devient très sèche. Et cette communauté qui est là et qui travaille à un certain moment donné, a des difficultés pour pouvoir développer certains projets. Et ce film nous a permis de comprendre que Giving for Change a contribué à la résilience de cette population. Parce que la crise que nous vivons, il y a beaucoup de facteurs aussi qui peuvent augmenter le terrorisme. Par exemple, le manque d'accès aux services sociaux, voilà, peut amener certains jeunes, bien certaines personnes à aller s'enrôler au niveau des terroristes. Donc, nous avons vu qu'avec ce projet, les gens se sont organisés, les gens se parlent, voilà, les gens ont travaillé à vaincre la peur, les gens ont travaillé aussi à pouvoir, comment dirais-je, ne pas attendre un partenaire ou bien l'État, voilà, qui est censé de pouvoir les accompagner. Donc, ce projet qui a vu le jour, nous, on a compris que la communauté, a vraiment compris qu'elle peut faire confiance en elle-même. Confiance en elle-même, voilà, pour pouvoir s'octroyer un projet dont elle n'était pas sûre qu'elle avait la capacité de pouvoir le réaliser. Et vous savez, dans notre contrée, beaucoup pensent que c'est l'État ou bien les partenaires externes qui doivent venir, voilà, financer même des micro-projets pour eux. Et ce qui a été fait. Aujourd'hui, la population a compris qu'il ne faut pas attendre l'État, voilà, pour financer, pour se faire financer un forage ou bien, voilà, un autre projet qui peut être à leur portée. Et vous voyez que ce projet qui a été pensé par la communauté, ce projet qui a été organisé par la communauté, ne s'est pas limité seulement à l'accès à l'eau potable. Puisque comme c'est la communauté qui a pensé le projet, voilà, elle a essayé de ratisser encore large. Vous voyez que les femmes font la lessive autour de ce projet. Ils ont développé du jardinage autour de ce projet. Donc, il y a eu beaucoup de bénéficiaires. Alors que si c'était l'État qui avait offert ou un partenaire qui avait offert ce joyau, peut-être la communauté allait dire que ce fourrage allait être uniquement utilisé, voilà, pour boire. Il n'allait pas avoir d'autres projets, d'autres idées pour développer d'autres projets aussi qui vont profiter aux autres communautés. Donc, c'est un projet qui nous a beaucoup, comment dirais-je, attiré parce que c'est, vu la mobilisation, vu l'implication de tous les acteurs, vous voyez que tous les acteurs ont été impliqués, l'administration a été impliquée, toutes les personnes ressources, voilà, les femmes, voilà, les vieux, et nous pensons que c'est ça le développement durable, inclusif et résilient. Et c'est très important. Et quand vous faites, comment dirais-je, le tour de tous les projets qui ont été développés, ça c'est un film que nous avons choisi pour présenter à ce festival, mais il y a beaucoup de projets qui ont été développés. Et les acteurs qui n'étaient pas impliqués directement nous ont témoigné comme quoi Giving for Change, c'est un projet qui les a impliqués et non un projet qui les a informés. C'est ce que l'administration nous dit. Et les autres projets viennent les informer. Et après l'information, et ils ne savent même pas ce qui se passe. Mais Giving for Change les a impliqués pour les permettre de faire des retours, pour les permettre de faire des suggestions, pour les permettre de faire des orientations, pour les permettre, voilà, d'encadrer un peu les communautés afin que, voilà, tout le monde soit impliqué. Et si c'est le cas, voilà, on est sûr que le projet sera bien entretenu, on est sûr que la communauté est responsabilisée. Et si la communauté est responsable, tout ce qui sera développé comme projet seront des projets pérennes, des projets viables. Et dans ces contrées, voilà, on aura vraiment la cohésion sociale, et c'est très important. Il y a quelqu'un qui l'avait dit ici à l'introduction, c'est pas forcément l'argent. Et la première ressource, c'est quand les hommes arrivent à se parler. C'est quand les hommes arrivent à se réunir pour échanger. C'est ça, comment dirais-je, c'est ça le développement. Vous pouvez avoir toutes les ressources financières, mais une fois que les gens ne sont pas à mesure de se parler, une fois que les gens ne sont pas à mesure d'échanger pour donner des idées, tout ce que vous allez développer comme projet, voilà, sera un échec parce que ça ne sera pas entretenu, voilà, ça ne sera pas intéressé par tout le monde. Et moi, je pense que la philanthropie communautaire, la puissance de la philanthropie communautaire commence d'abord par l'engagement, l'implication, hein, de toutes les communautés, de toutes les couches sociales. Et quand c'est comme ça, chacun contribue à sa manière. Ça peut être de l'argent, ça peut être son temps, ça peut être de la compétence, voilà, pour parvenir à un développement durable, inclusif. Et je pense que Giving for Change, c'est une voie que nous devrons renforcer. C'est une voie que nous devrons réfléchir, voilà, pour essayer d'innover, voilà, parce que l'expérience que nous avons eu à faire durant ces 5 ans nous a permis de savoir où est-ce que nous pouvons activer, voilà, pour pouvoir contribuer à obtenir des meilleurs résultats plus que ce qui, voilà, vient. Donc, j'invite tout le monde à zoomer la vidéo, voilà, pour mieux comprendre ce qui s'est passé dans le jardin de table. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Abdullah. And thank you so much for that. So please watch all of these videos. You've seen all of these trailers. They are such vital and important stories that shows what is possible with community philanthropy. It shows that the investment from the Giving for Change program can actually, engender this process in which communities are centered, right? And that sustainability is not just a buzzword, right? That it is actually at the heart of it, and that, communities will continue to show up for each other, and that we can make that happen. So thank you all. So now I'm going to call up my panelists. It is now time for your questions. You have sent us beautiful questions, and important questions, difficult questions. And I think it's time for us to now ask it. So if you still want to put in a question, now is the time to do it, friends. Now is the time to do it, friends. And we know we are all experts here, so I'm going to call on my panelists to answer some of these questions, but please feel free to, in the chat, also respond to some of these questions, or share links and answers, because I know we've all been part of, some of us have been part of this program from the beginning. All right, so I'm going to throw the questions out there, and my panelists can choose which one they want to respond to or speak to. I will not put you on the spot, so because I'm nice and will not abuse my powers like Museveni is trying to do in Uganda. I shall be democratic and share power in that. So the first question that came to us is, how can community philanthropy be conceived and implemented in a multi-religious environment where charitable practices, although central, are based on theological and cultural foundations that differ from those of philanthropy? So this question really is asking, how can you do community philanthropy in a religious environment and multi-religious, which a lot of us are part of, whatever country we're in. And I know for all of the countries you all are in, that is very true. But often the focus is on the theology or on the cultural rather than just pure philanthropy. So is it possible for it to be conceived and implemented in those kind of contexts? I don't know who would like to maybe take that first. I'm looking at your eyes. Who's ready? Grace.
Yes.
Take it.
So I think in terms of can community philanthropy be practiced, grown in a multicultural, multi-religious environment, I would say from where I sit, yes. Because of the what are the fundamentals that are then bringing us together? Ultimately, we are all human. What is bringing us together is that we want to solve a particular issue. We want to be able to see how to address it, and we bring our whole selves to it. And so what also binds us together is the issues about trust, the issues about solidarity, the issues about sharing, the issues about care. And so fundamentally, if you look across then diverse cultures and religions, if you're able to pull those strands together, then you're still able to exist as a community, even if and work on issues that are community-centric, even if you have different religious persuasions. I think the invitation, even within this festival, is to see community philanthropy for what it can continuously be in terms of a different way of addressing issues that put communities at the centric, and understanding communities are not homogeneous. People have different views, different cultural persuasions, different religious persuasions, but at the center of it, what brings us together is we're coming together to address a particular issue. We're bringing what we have, our knowledge, our resources, our expertise, and that requires to build trust and solidarity. So from where I sit, I would say, yes, what are the common threads that tie us together? If there's trust, there's solidarity, there's a vision of community driving the process, community philanthropy can still thrive in that environment. Thanks.
Right. Let me just add to what Grace has said. And I think, yes, it's possible, except in very extremely polarized, contexts where it may not be safe. Otherwise, I think it's something that can be done. And adding to what Grace has said, I would suggest maybe focusing on the issue. What is the issue? What is the problem that needs to be resolved? Can we build a community around that? So if it is access to water, if it is health services, etc. So building a community around the issue and exploring the commonalities, whatever the religious persuasions, I think there are elements, there are teachings, there are lessons in those that highlights the need for, the power of, and the responsibility, for to be an active member of the community, to contribute to our community development. And so using those ones as the basis, for the conversations. But I think that building a community around a particular issue is quite important, because then that moves it away from I am a Muslim, you are a Buddhist, and etc., to I am a user or a beneficiary of this, and I have a responsibility, to help to get it fixed or developed over.
Great, thanks.
I can add an example. In Indonesia, which is a majority Muslim society, but also very polarized, and much of the discrimination and polarization that's happening is justified in religious terms. So they're working with progressive faith-based organizations who are also developing, showing two things. One, bringing together resources to show solidarity in times when there needs to be a voice from the dominant faith that is against the discrimination. So that's that kind of pulling, mobilizing resources to do that. But the other, also as important, is mobilizing sharing of resources to challenge from within the faith the sources of dominant hegemonic viewpoints that has been playing a role in perpetuating the discrimination and polarization. So it's sharing of resources also to challenge the power from within the religious faith.
All right, thank you so much for that. I'm going to jump to the next question. I'm going to combine two questions, so bear with me here because I want to make sure we get all of the questions. So there was a question that was talking about in the existing philanthropy space, is it possible to make it more equitable, or do we need to tear it down and rebuild all over again? And tied to that is another question about this current system that we have, right? In terms of not just philanthropy, but aid, development, the economy. And so this person is also curious about, is it possible for community philanthropy to change this existing system? So, which is that person's question as well, like, is it possible to change it? Or do we need to completely rebuild it and just focus on building trust and giving in communities? So it would be good to hear your perspective. Is it that community philanthropy can change this current system, or do we just need to rebuild the entire thing? It's a difficult question, but I welcome your brilliant minds to help us, to give us direction into how to think about this. Yes. I don't know who wants to go first. Kamala, want to start us?
Sure. I think community-based organizations that build from our own resources for towards a different future that's more equitable, more just for everyone, human rights defended for everyone. I think we need to show the way. And not focus on trying to repair the system, but first show the way, show that there is a different way, and that this different way, even though it's small and very contextual, it has principles and it has the elements of a system we want. And that if we are connected to each other, and show that this is not just 1, 2, 3 examples, but that we are a whole wave of new model that's not singular, and probably it will be a multiple system ecosystem, multiple models creating an ecosystem. I think we should aim. I don't know if we can do it, but I think we should aim at showing the way of how the future should be through our rootedness in community.
Thank you so much. Tanko, Grace, any thoughts to add to that? Tanko, I think you're muted. You're speaking, but you're muted.
would say that yes, we need to use community philanthropy to model what is possible, to demonstrate what else is possible, because we've just usually been presented with one story, one way. And I think we have a responsibility to demonstrate that there are other ways which are infinitely more effective, more sustainable, more inclusive, etc. And I think that in doing so, I think that there wouldn't be a need to tear down anything. It would just be a replacement. It would just be a gradual, because if you haven't built something, you can't tear it down. But you can construct what works for you, what you want, and so I think that we can then use that as our way of supporting our development processes and etc. And in this current context in which development is taking place, there's really no other alternative than focusing on our own, resources, our own processes, our own strategies for development. The old ways of doing things, whether we tear them down or not, are on their way out. I think over.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, Grace, do you have anything to add, or should I? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we've spent hours, even, for those of us who are working around this area, having those debates. It's a very heated topic. And I think your answer will depend on your orientation and, sort of what you've seen and your biases. And so I find that sometimes it's a very divisive topic, because it can go either way. It can put people off, or get people to see things. So I really like what Kamala have said and what Tanko have said in terms of let's focus on the possible future. And let me pick that. I'm using that from what others have said and gone before me and talked about this. Let's not get fixated around do we break this down? Do we do this? But I understand people who feel you cannot use, the old master's tools to build a new or an emerging system. So I try not to answer that question. Let me be honest. And I prefer to think that as humans, we are able to change. We're able to grow. We're able to realize there are things we didn't know. We can unlearn things that we have learned. And I would extend that grace to people and to systems. And that might not be everyone's cup of tea. But even for myself, from a personal standpoint, I've worked, for not-for-profit organizations for all my life. And I've moved from, working on programs that were very hierarchical, system-based, log frame, to what I'm doing now. So I would extend the same grace to others and to us being able to let's move forward and let's, now that we know better, let's do better. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I love that you're living up to your name, Grace. Love it. All right. The next question is, in this divided world, community philanthropy can be a powerful tool for bridging gaps and fostering unity. What strategies can be employed to effectively engage communities in philanthropic efforts, like in owning it, considering the historical disconnection from contribution? So, what are the strategies that have been employed, that you all have employed in effectively engaging communities in philanthropic efforts? So maybe you can share a few. I don't know who would like.
Let me start off and just say, I think we need to disabuse the notion that communities have not been engaged in philanthropy, or that communities have not been giving. And like this, we just woke up today and this started happening. I think we need to really disabuse that, because that's a negative narrative that has been parroted and people have believed it. So communities give. They may not give in the way we want, or in the way that is seen, or in the way that is appreciated or is more amplified, but they have always given. And so it's difficult then for me to answer that, but I would start from that premise that communities have always given, and in different forms, whether it was, making sure that within a particular village, the widows were taken care of. When people would be harvesting, they would leave some grain behind for those who don't have to come and get. Those stories are there. So we need to move away from the thinking that this is a new thing. So how do we get communities to give? I think we just need to see the reality in terms of that this is a practice that has been there. And we're just amplifying it and focusing also now on strengthening the community voice and engagement. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. I don't know, Tanko or Kamala, if you want to add anything to that in terms of like strategies.
Well, in terms in our case, basically our efforts to mobilize the sharing of resources is mission-based. There's a clear mission, shared mission, and there's a clear value that is grounding the whole mission, collective mission. And so that brings people across divides because we are clear on what that the mission is on, clear for everyone, and everyone agrees with that mission, whether it's on violence against women or on ecological justice. When that's clear, then especially since we're building on networks of trust, we can build bridges.
I think after those extremely wise words from Greece and Kamala, I have nothing to add to that. I mean, I completely agree.
All right, thank you so much. And then now another question is this, is that is there a community philanthropy approach that builds more people power than others? So I think the question is, when I guess in philanthropy, they're looking at it that there are different approaches, and maybe there's some that are more effective at building trust and people power than others. So in your experience, maybe start with you, Tanko, since you didn't have anything to add to the other questions. Maybe you can take this first. Is that and since you have your mic on, so let me take advantage of that. Are there approaches within community philanthropy that build more people power than others, or is it that community philanthropy just builds people power in general? I don't know.
Well, the examples, the models, the approaches that I've seen have all started from the premise that this is about communities, this is about how they approach the task of community development. And so if we start from that premise, I think everything else flows from that, and therefore the whole thing around people's power or people's capacities or people's ownership, is integral to that destiny. And of course, we have seen examples of philanthropy, whether we call that community, where resources have been mobilized, almost on a charity basis. Particularly in Ghana, we do have those ones that the media use, to mobilize resources to support sick people, to put up a classroom, etc., which is doing it for them, even though the contributions are coming from everybody, in the country, as against doing it with them, which I see as the more common approach that happens within the development sector.
Okay. All right, thank you. I don't know, Grace, Kamala, any thoughts? Yeah, Kamala?
Yeah, for me, I think is there one more than the other in terms of building power for the people and among the people? I think there's some philanthropic systems that's very structured. There's a whole structure. It's very mechanical, and not to say that that's not good, but I believe in organic space, and that we are in structured space lives also the organic space of relationship building, friendship. And I think when we're talking about a solidarity-based system, that element of relationship building, friendship, genuine connection becomes the critical point. So it's not a professional, it's not a profession, it's not what is it? A ready-made system that everyone has to follow, but that we are creating something together.
Okay, thank you. Grace, anything to add?
I saw the question in the Q&A and I purposefully didn't answer it because I didn't know how to answer it because I wasn't sure which of these different community philanthropy approaches, but I think maybe it's something that I can look into later, yeah. But I really identify with what Tanko and Kamala said.
Good. Fantastic. All right, so this is going to be the last question for you all, and please use it to wrap up if you have any final thoughts. And also at the end of that question, if you could please just indulge me to share what is the one thing you're taking away with you from this space, like the things that resonated with you. And the question that they asked, which I think is a very powerful question and not easy to answer, is that what do communities need to meet this moment from the global community and from one another? I love that question. It's like, what do we need at this time, at this moment? To be able to meet this moment, from the global community and from one another. So whoever wants to go first.
I can go first, something very brief.
Yeah.
We need spaces where we can listen to each other.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that is true. Yeah. Who would like to go next?
I think we need solidarity because if we are moving from the micro, and I'm using that word advisedly, to a system that, is inclusive, sustainable, it goes beyond just one community and looks at communities, integrating communities in the whole thing. The issue of solidarity, but also our role as accompaniers and support critical friends is very important. And the whole thing about documenting and sharing what we're doing at the community level, that it inspires others, it leads to uptake, and builds communities of practice that are not just focused on one community. That's what I think. Over.
Okay, Grace.
Thanks. I think we do need to, as much as we continue to talk to each other, talk to ourselves in these echo chambers, we need to take some of these conversations to our friends, to our relatives, beyond our workspaces. And why do I say that? Like all the work that we do, we want to solve problems, we want to address issues. We need to just go back to the basics of why. Why are we doing this? Because we have seen inequality, because we're seeing pain, as we talked about in the beginning. That's why we should be giving. And can we go back to basics and talk to someone who's not in the philanthropy or development space about this topic? That would be my call to action. To everyone on the call, talk to them about this in the next 2 weeks, that this is what's happening and there are people around the world that are trying to make this world a better place. So what can we do from where we are?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to bring on Abdullahi and also Noor for this final round. But there is actually a question for Abdullahi from the chat that I did want to ask. So Abdullahi, hopefully you can hear me. I'm going to ask the questions as we bring you on. They wanted to know about the evolution of community philanthropy in Burkina Faso, and they wanted to know if there's been a change in community and government mindsets around community philanthropy.
Ok, merci bien. Disons qu'au Burkina Faso, on a remarqué un véritable changement au sein de la communauté, notamment le changement de mentalité. Parce que à travers le programme Gaming for Change, on a vu une communauté de plus en plus engagée, une communauté de plus en plus qui essaie voilà, de mettre des initiatives voilà, pour pouvoir développer des petits projets, chose qui n'était pas évident. On a vu aussi un réseau qui s'est mis en place. Un réseau, c'est quoi? C'est-à-dire que les communautés de pratique aujourd'hui voilà, arrivent à s'entretenir entre associations, voilà, pour partager des expériences et pouvoir travailler ensemble à faire un plaidoyer, voilà, auprès des détenteurs de pouvoir, voilà, sur des thématiques données. Et ça, c'est un grand changement, quelque chose voilà, qu'on ne voyait pas avant le programme Giving for Change. Ça ne veut pas dire que le plaidoyer ne se faisait pas, mais c'était des professionnels qui le faisaient et chose qui, souvent, le résultat n'est pas toujours au rendez-vous. Mais avec les acteurs même qui vivent le problème, qui vivent la situation, voilà, c'est plus facile de pouvoir être écouté et de pouvoir travailler avec l'autorité pour voilà, des réflexions voilà, de prise de solution. Et ça, c'est un. Et du côté du gouvernement, je pense qu'aujourd'hui, le gouvernement actuel est en train de travailler, voilà, je peux dire, sur nos idées, parce qu'il y a beaucoup de projets qui sont développés, voilà, par ce gouvernement. Et les contributions viennent essentiellement, voilà, des populations. Et je pense que cela veut dire que le gouvernement a compris qu'il faut mettre la population au devant des choses, voilà. Et pour pouvoir mobiliser la population, il faudrait que ce que nous attaquons comme thématique, voilà, soit leurs priorités. Et c'est bien vrai qu'avec la crise, les gens sont en train de contribuer parce que aujourd'hui, tout le monde veut la paix, parce que les gens trouvent leur intérêt, voilà, là-dedans. La paix, qui est vraiment, voilà, une comment dirais-je, des problèmes. Voilà. Donc, pour réussir la philanthropie communautaire, il faudrait mobiliser les gens autour de leurs intérêts. Et quand c'est comme ça et que la gestion est transparente, vous allez voir que les gens vont accepter se donner et puis contribuer à faire avancer les choses. Et aujourd'hui, le gouvernement développe beaucoup de projets, voilà, qui répond, voilà, à cette approche de la philanthropie communautaire. Et pour terminer avec les communautés. C'est comme je l'ai dit à l'introduction, quand on prenait 2021 à aujourd'hui, voilà, ce qui a été fait en termes de changement de mentalité, en termes de changement de comportement est différent de ce que nous vivons aujourd'hui à travers ces communautés. Là où le programme Giving for Change a intervenu, voilà, on a vu ces communautés-là, voilà, qui se sont, voilà, remarquées par leur manière de faire. Et nous avons, dans notre évaluation, nous avons vu que la plupart de des membres de nos communautés de pratique ont été invités par le gouvernement, voilà, à participer à ce qu'on appelle le conseil de gestion des écoles. Et beaucoup de nos communautés de pratique se retrouvent dedans sur l'invitation du gouvernement. Elles sont invitées aussi, voilà, à faire partie comment dirais-je, du développement des plans de développement communaux, chose qui n'était pas, voilà, qui n'était pas évident. Mais on a vu que c'est des structures qui peuvent apporter beaucoup de choses en termes d'idées, en termes de dynamisme, raison pour laquelle on les invite. Et toutes ces structures n'étaient même pas associées à toutes ces réflexions-là. Et aujourd'hui, avec ce qu'elles ont eu comme connaissances et compétences et comme vision, voilà, elles sont conviées à chaque fois, voilà, et puis elles sont écoutées. Donc, nous, on peut dire fièrement, voilà, qu'il y a eu beaucoup de changements à ce niveau. Merci bien.
Thank Thank you so much. Thanks you so much, Abdullahi. I know that we have 1 minute, and I'm going to give my panelists just quick one word things before we go of one thing they think people should take away with them as they leave. But just a reminder to everyone, in case you're dropping off, that in 2 hours, there is another session where new film trailers will be premiered as well, and it is going to be focused on claiming rights and the role of community resources. So it's just going to be as dynamic and as exciting as this session. So please join us again in 2 hours for another amazing, amazing webinar with new films, new panelists as well. But now I'm going to start with Noor and end with Grace. And what is your one word to take away?
The word is dignity, and it's sovereignty.
Fantastic. Thank you. Tanko?
Trust, solidarity.
Fantastic. Kamala?
Imagination.
Imagination. Lovely. Grace?
Together.
Together. Together. Abdullahi?
Pour moi, c'est dignité, solidarité, engagement.
So fantastic. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to my beautiful panelists. Thank you to the amazing partners for their film trailers. Thank you to the Global Fund for Communities team, especially to Jenny, to Rupert, to Essie, and to Wendy, who worked through the holidays to make this festival possible. So their hard work behind the scenes, as well as the partners, made it. So thank you all so much. And we would be here talking to ourselves if all of you amazing, engaging participants were in here asking questions, sharing resources. And I saw this beautiful conversation that happened on the chat around community philanthropy. I'm hoping all of this is being documented. Thank you so much to Wana for your poetry and for those uplifting words. And so I just want to say thank you all so much who showed up from everywhere across the world, and sending solidarity to every single person, especially those in Uganda at this time. So have a wonderful rest of the day, everyone, and hopefully see you again in 2 hours. All the best. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right.